What's happening everyone, my name is Alex and I'm back with a new smartphone review. For today we have a phone that costs under $130, it's mostly made out of metal, has dual cameras on the back and decent specs. This is the Leagoo T5. So this phone is powered by the MediaTek 6750T. This is an octa-core CPU clocked at 1.5 GHz. We also have 4 GB of RAM, 64 GB of internal storage, and the device is running Android 7. Out of that 64 GB of internal storage, we have about 52 GB left, but luckily the phone can take SD cards, and it's very easy to install an SD card as internal storage. The phone itself looks quite good and it doesn't feel or look cheap by any means. The back is mostly made out of metal, and by that I mean that we have plastic at the top and at the bottom. As for the size, well, it's about the same size as all the other phones with a 5.5-inch screen, which makes the phone a bit difficult to use holding it in one hand. Why don't we start with those dual cameras on the back, or maybe I should say let's start with the one camera on the back, because even though we have a 13 megapixel camera and a 5 megapixel camera, the 5 megapixel camera doesn't actually do anything and you can cover it and nothing will happen, you can still take pictures. So the 5 megapixel camera doesn't exactly work and it's basically a marketing gimmick. So even though there is a mode to take pictures with the bokeh effect is artificially made. So the phone just makes a circle around the focusing point and everything outside of that circle is blurred out. So the pictures don't look good at all. But moving to regular looking pictures, well, those ones look much better than the ones that you're gonna take with the bokeh effect. Now the dynamic range is not the best out there. However, the pictures do have a lot of detail in them and the camera has a lot of potential. The HDR mode also works okay, but the pictures taken with the HDR mode on seem to be just slightly overexposed. Now moving to nighttime pictures, like most cheaper phones these days, nighttime pictures don't look that bad, however they're not as bad as we've seen in the past. And since we are talking about cameras, we might as well talk about the front-facing camera. So on the front of the device we have a 13 megapixel camera, but we also have a flash, which again it's not something that we see for every phone. Now the quality from that front-facing camera is surprisingly good. The pictures taken with plenty of light are very sharp and detailed, but the pictures taken in low light don't look the best. But again, that's quite normal for a phone that costs only about $130. And moving back to the phone's physical appearance, on the right hand side you're gonna find the power button and the volume keys, and those ones are also made out of metal. On the left we have the SIM card tray, and this phone can take either two SIM cards or a SIM card and an SD card. And all the way at the bottom you're gonna find the microphone, the 3.5mm audio jack, micro USB port, and lastly the speaker. The phone supports OTG and it takes about 2 hours to fully charge from 0 to 100. Now, since we are talking about charging inside this phone, even though the phone is only 7.6mm thick, we have a 3000 mAh battery. The battery life is not the greatest that I've seen, but you will still be able to make it through an entire day and get about 4 hours of screen on time, which is not bad considering that we have the MediaTek 6750T. And going back to the sound quality, well, first of all, the speaker at the bottom there, even though it sounds good, it sounds a bit distorted to the maximum volume. So if you listen to around 75-80% of its volume, it does sound okay. As for the 3.5mm audio jack, well, the sound is quite loud but not that crisp, so definitely not the best that I've heard in this price range. And we are moving to the front of the device. So first of all, we have rather large bezels all around the screen, but I guess considering the price of the phone, we can't really complain. Now the screen is a 5.5-inch display that has a resolution of 1080p, and I have to say that it looks very good. The colors are nice and vibrant, the viewing angles are really good, so you can see the phone no matter how you look at it, and the screen seems to get bright enough so you can see it outside. Now keep in mind that there is a bit of glare and reflection whenever you're outside, but the screen is bright enough so you can actually see it. As for the touch sensitivity, I believe that this is better than most phones in this price range, and you can actually touch the screen in 10 places in the same time and the screen will register, so no complaints about the touch sensitivity. The navigation buttons at the bottom of the screen can also be moved around from the software, but you can also use that fingerprint scanner as a back button or as a home button. And since we are talking about that fingerprint scanner, the fingerprint scanner is accurate most of the time, however it may not be the fastest out there, but this is quite normal for a phone in this price range. Performance-wise, I don't really have any complaints, the phone performs quite well, but that MediaTek 6750T, it's not the fastest CPU out there, so of course the scores that we are gonna get on the Antutu benchmark and the Geekbench 4 aren't the highest out there, which is quite normal. I tried quite a few apps on this phone and none of them seem to lag or anything like that, but it's gonna take you a bit longer than usual to actually open apps, and that's mostly because of that CPU. I mean, if you'd compare this to the Samsung phone, for example, a flagship from Samsung, you'd definitely notice that the Samsung phone would open apps much faster. But again, considering the price of the phone, I think it performs very well for pretty much all the apps that I tried, including gaming. There may be a couple of skipped frames here and there, mostly if you're playing a game on maximum settings. However, if you drop those settings somewhere to the middle, the phone does work very well. The phone's UI, it's not my favorite out there, so even though the phone is running Android 7, we have Leagoo's own skin on top of it. Now, I'm not sure why they decided to do that, because we would have been happy enough with something closer to stock Android, but it is what it is. Now, they even have their own app store, and I mean, if we have access to the Play Store, what's the point in having their own app store, if you know what I mean? And we also have access to a theme store and a wallpaper store as well, but realistically, you can just get all that from the Google Play Store. The GPS unit inside this phone is not the fastest that I've seen, but after it finds your location, it does seem to work good with most navigation apps, and it doesn't seem to lose your location, which is a good thing. As for sensors, well, we don't really have that many sensors, and we don't have a gyroscope, and that means that you're not going to be able to use this as a VR headset. Connectivity-wise, the phone can connect to 4G networks, but unfortunately we don't have NFC or dual-band Wi-Fi, so you can only connect to the 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi bands. Now, the speaker on top here seems to get loud enough so you can have good conversations, so no issues with the speaker, and the speeds that I got over Wi-Fi and the 4G connection are decent. So overall, this is a decent budget phone, but in the same time there is nothing exceptional about it and nothing bad about it, so it's just another average budget phone. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did like it, press that like button, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.